The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right. Welcome to the podcast, another show. This is Mitch Beinhacker, your host. We got a coast-to-coast guest today. My earlier guest was in my town. This guy is on the absolute other side of the country, not other side of the world, but we'll talk to Joe in a minute. If you are listening on your favorite podcast directory, leave us a 5-star review. If you are watching us on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like us, so we can keep, connecting with guys like Joe. So let's get on with today's show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode. All right, Joe. So I do want to say I appreciate you plugging in, being on the road. You said you're out in California helping your dad as opposed to being in Montana when you normally are. But
I know.
I appreciate
and now's the time not to leave Montana because it's so beautiful in summer.
Yeah, it's like ridiculously hot and probably out by it's hot as hell in New Jersey. So
yeah, it's not bad in Montana right now. We're having a heat wave, so it's in the 90s. So it's like that's pretty intense. But usually, we get nice 80-degree weather in the summer, and it's beautiful.
Nice trout country. I was telling you off mic that I fished the Bitterroot Mountains, man. It was.
Yeah.
I remember being in those rivers. We would go on these float trips in these rafts, and you would get out and fish. And the fish would be, you can't catch them when they're that close to you, but they would like be at your feet.
Yeah.
Like this big, big fish. And you couldn't do anything about it. Just look at them. You had to cast away. So yeah. And then it was cool. I had a great time. I definitely have to get back to Montana. So again, thanks for joining me. It's probably like middle of the day in California here. It's 3 o'clock. Yeah, and let's talk about, you being an entrepreneur. I know you have several companies, you got real estate investments, things going on. But why don't we go back? Tell me about a little bit about your background, how you learned what you're training, and then what was your first business and how did that go, type of thing.
Yeah. So, first business was door-to-door sales business, pseudo pretend marketing business. We literally called it a marketing business, but, and it was product market fit, but we literally sold stuff door to door. And I had where I became an entrepreneur was young. I watched my dad, who was a struggling entrepreneur. He never had any success building businesses, but literally did it forever until he couldn't work anymore. And still never had any success, which is the reason I'm traveling to help him. But I always kind of knew, watching the other side of my family, being that, my dad was a struggling entrepreneur. My mom, my stepdad both had kind of, jobs. They worked, my mom was a waitress. My stepdad was a police officer, and they
Got
never
it.
had enough. And
Right. Yeah,
I
I was always
remember,
struggling.
as a kid, I had a good friend of mine. His dad would take us to, I grew up in Northern California. He would take us to Oakland A's baseball games in the middle of the day. And I
Right.
thought it was just like the most fascinating thing. Like, how does this guy not have to work? And
Right.
later, as I got older, I learned that he owned the biggest businesses in town. And his name was Jim, so I always give him a shout out. And I realized, like, that I want that. I want that freedom.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
so that's kind of where it started. And it took a lot of uncovering to actually figure that out. Lots of podcast interviews. And then finally I got down,
Right.
like, oh my God, it was that. That was what it was. And
Yeah.
but then I went
He's
to
like a
college.
rich
'cause
dad, poor dad, right?
Exactly.
He's like
Yeah.
a rich
And
dad,
it
poor
was.
dad.
And he
Dad.
wasn't like a rich dad. He wasn't like a dad figure to me, but he was
Right.
he was just a role model in town. He was just one, he grew up there, and he's one of the greatest guys, and everybody loves him. And and so seeing that, I knew that there was something there that was different, but I didn't know, like, understand how to get it. And then I did read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was really the root. I think I was 17. That was the root of knowing that no matter what, I'm going to go start businesses. I'm going to invest.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do,
Right.
because
I
I'm
think I
watching
read
my
that
parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it was you, it would have been, life changing. Definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know that I would be an entrepreneur at the end of the day without the lessons from that book. Or at least I wouldn't have had accelerated success, I would say. So that's kind of the basis origin, kind of how I got going.
Yeah. So, unless you tell me we don't want to talk about this, but your dad. So why do you think your dad struggled so much throughout his life? And you
shiny
figured
object,
it out.
shiny object syndrome, cutting corners, always the kind of get rich quick type, ideas. It was always, this is going to be the next big thing, right? And then our garage is full of some new stuff. And then it was this other business over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no planning, no thinking it out, no working the system, no figuring out, does this work? Will people buy this? None of that stuff.
None of that. It was somebody sold him, then he turned around and sold it. And, it was just that. And you see it. I mean, that's the world of multi-level marketing for the most part, right? And, my dad got himself into those things, and it was always something. And, as you build businesses, you find out that it's a heck of a lot easier to make them successful when you stay consistent, you do it, and you do it for a long period of time. And if you keep going, the business will eventually succeed.
Right. If you
as long as there's as long as there's market fit, and then you have actually a good product or service.
Right.
That's always
But I think all this marketing, multi-level marketing and on TV marketing, it sends people down that rabbit hole.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh well, if he's on a yacht with beautiful women and he's got a sports car in the driveway, I mean,
yeah,
of course, everyone
can do that. I was just nobody, and then I became this amazing,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, they succeeded overnight over.
That's right.
50 years, Yeah.
Yeah.
So what? Okay, so the sales business though really was just selling door to door. So what was the first real, I wouldn't call it brick and mortar, but real business that you?
Well, that was it.
There,
there were 40 employees, and I ended up selling. And then I ended up selling the company when I was 22. I think I was 22 when I sold it.
Okay, so what were you selling?
Oh my God, name it. It was okay. So it was essentially products that were either gonna be placed in stores, Walmart's, Targets, things like that, and they genuinely wanted to find out if this product would serve the market and would succeed. So it was everything from pots and pans that were new brand style, so forth, to children's toys, to kitchen knives, and it really was a plethora of everything.
You were like the proof of concept guys, right? You were like hired to sell, make them some unimproved, because they couldn't get into the stores. The stores are like,
they couldn't get into the store unless they could prove that they could sell to the end user.
Business.
Yeah,
that's a good
business.
It was
phenomenal. And what was amazing about it was that I got a warehouse of $1 million worth of product on consignment.
Right. They wanted you to just sell our stuff.
We'll pay for it.
They had no choice.
Yeah. And nice. They took the chance. And so when I sold the company, it was literally somebody learned about that, and all they wanted was my consignment contract. That was it. They could care less about anything else. They didn't want me. They didn't want The employees, they didn't want anything else.
Really?
All they wanted was the consignment so that they could then, it was when eBay was really starting to get hot. It was really moving. And so they were they ended up flipping stuff on eBay, and that's how they took over the business.
Got it. And your employees were anywhere from fulfillment to sales to like operations and bookkeeping, that type of stuff.
I mean, it was literally an admin in the office. We had warehouse staff to manage inventory and basically essentially fill carloads full of stuff. So I had the warehouse consigned to me, all the product consigned to me. I had the office lease and all that stuff, but I had it all assigned to me, and then consigned. Then I consigned it again to sales reps to go out and sell. Then they brought back at the end of the day whatever they didn't sell. We put it back and we checked off inventory. They leveled up with us on pay, and then that was that. And it was pretty interesting business.
Because we just talked about planning things out more strategically and whatever. You're 17 years old. You don't know much. I wasn't 17. No. This business started after that. But are you saying when I read the book? Oh, I see. No. Well, you said you sold the business. You were 22.
22. Yeah.
So you're early.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Plan that whole out? You couldn't manage 40 employees and stuff in a warehouse.
I moved to Seattle and worked inside an office of somebody else doing the exact same thing.
To learn from them.
I went, hit the streets, and I sold in the streets of Seattle, business to business. I walked in and I sold stuff door to door. I built a crew of people with me that worked with me that I trained. We worked together. We taught them how to manage inventory. We taught like the whole thing. And then a whole bunch of them moved to California, where I opened the office in Northern California in Sacramento. And then they moved with me. And that's how we opened the office. And then we employed a bunch of people there. And then I think it was 2.5 years later, 26 months later. Somebody came in and actually bought the contract from me.
So you were basically figuring it out on your own, writing down your processes, teaching these other people, making your manuals. You kind of did it on the fly.
On the fly. Yep. 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, 7 days a week.
And you don't have an MBA from college or anything like
that?
I'm a dropout.
I'm a college dropout. Didn't even finish college. I realized when I went to college to play basketball, and I thought I was going to play basketball, and then I'm 5'11" and white and not as good as I thought I was, and so I didn't get to play. I got to sit the bench, and so I thought, well, there's better things to do than sit the bench for a couple of years, and so I was like, well, I'll just start a business, and that's how I got into that.
Yeah, but you must have had something in you. I find people that can get out there and sell, hit the streets, and doesn't bother them, and they're positive about everything. It takes like a certain personality. You can train some of it. Yeah. Some of it you can't. So now you're early 20s, and you just what do you think? Were you always like that? Always driven and doing all kinds of stuff?
Pretty driven. I think the athletic side of me helped because I'm super competitive. Right. So if I was going to be put in a sales situation and there's somebody across and I got to figure out how to beat them. And so I was, obviously not a good college student, but I was a good student of life and of business. And I've always been a learner. And so when somebody else can do something better than I can do, and I want that skill, then I'll just study and I'll dissect everything they do. And why'd you say that? And how'd you say that? And what triggered it? And, why, and that's how I got better at sales. But the repetition, I mean, when you pitch 200 people a day, 6 to 7 days a week for a year, you're going to get damn good.
It's your 10,000 hours rule, right?
Yeah. And you can do it super quick when you work 7 days a week.
Flattens out real quick.
Yeah.
All right. So you're 22, you sell the company.
Yep.
And you weren't anymore, right? Because you gave them the consignment contract. This was done. What's day two? Day one after that? What?
I went and I bought a house. So I was technically, I just realized I was 23 when it all went down. So then I went and bought a house that was going to be an investment property. And then I started seeing kind of how the market was working back then. So again, this is like, 05 and real estate markets, So real estate markets starting to climb, and I got in and decided, okay, cool. I'm going to start buying some rental properties and buy some houses. But the big talk in the street was if you can buy these properties that are brand new construction, and by the time that they, are finished, you can put a sign in the yard and you can sell it in a weekend and you can make money and you don't have to live in it. And
No,
so I
people were
did
doing
that.
it down, and they didn't even
All it
close on the house.
was.
They just flipped it to the next person.
That's
Yeah.
all it was. So I
And
figured
you were
out that,
making money doing it. Holy shit.
oh yeah. So I took
Yeah.
money from the business, and then I went and
Yeah.
did that once, made a little bit of money on that one. And then I realized I can go do it again. And so then I did it again, and then they let me do it twice in the same neighborhood at the same time. Then I realized that none of the builders knew if I was in contract with other builders. So I started going to every, I started going to every housing development, and I would just put a deposit down on a property. They would build it. And then, so at one time, I think we had like 6 or 8 going at the same time, stuck signs in the ground, and then immediately sold them, made money, turned around, then said, oh, well, now the hot thing is like these fix and flips. So I'm going to go buy these distressed properties and then do the fixes. That was great until the market started to decline in 2008. And then, you know, in the Sacramento market where I was at the time, declined really fast. And now we had 16 properties in construction at the same time. And which was a bad idea because, you know, I was not capitalized for that.
All one basket, right? Eggs in one basket.
And so the market declined, and all of a sudden the margin that I needed in all these properties disappeared. And I got my first like real punch in the gut in business and realized that I'm not as smart and rich as I thought I was, and lost everything. So that was
all of it.
Literally. Yeah. I gave 8 properties back to the bank. I sold some to some buddies. We cut some deals with the lenders, got out of some of those properties. And then I was upside down big time.
Yeah. You caught it like at the right time, but you never know the wave's going to break and it's too late. And then, and you get over leveraged. That's what happens in real estate sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it was
more from that experience than you did from all your other years of working, you know?
Well, yeah, it's like, imagine if I had just bought all of those properties, and instead of trying to do all these fix and flips and spend so much in construction and all these things to sell them, because they had to be prepped to sell versus prepped to rent. And if I would have rented them and held them, I mean, I probably wouldn't have started all the other business I had, because I would just have those properties, and that would have been like the start. So I probably wouldn't have needed to go build anything else, because I would have had plenty of money. So in hindsight, it's like, I just did it wrong. I invested in real estate very wrong. I went for capital gain. I didn't look at cash flow. I didn't understand depreciation. You know, I'm in my early mid-20s. I was an idiot and didn't study enough about that side of it. But what I was really good at was finding and negotiating sales, right? Like I was in that.
You're a closer. You're a salesman.
Yeah, but I didn't know anything about the other stuff, and I really screwed myself. And so hindsight's 2020.
So now you're back to square one, basically?
Oh, yes. I was back to square one again. Yeah. You know, got nothing. Reading books and trying to figure out what my life's purpose is going to be.
Right. Holy shit.
And that led
so
me,
then what?
Yeah, that led me to the 4-hour work week, which was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to move to San Diego. I'm going to live at the beach, because the nomad lifestyle thing kept talking about the beach. So I moved to San Diego. I sat down at my kitchen table and I built a business page by page out of that book, page by page. I did every single thing in the book. I tested every single thing that Tim Ferriss mentioned, and I built an e-commerce business selling a homeopathic supplement. And that worked for quite a while, and it was a really good business.
How did you find the supplement? Just something you researched and said, okay, we're going to settle on this?
I ran into somebody else who built a business selling the exact same product. And I'm like, shit, if she could do it, I could do it. And so I started buying wholesale from her. And then I found that, I can just go directly to a manufacturer and I can get it way cheaper. And so I started doing that. And then I found the margin. And then I was like, oh, now I get it. And, so then you have 80% margin on it. And it was incredible. So then it was that was like my first take in building processes and systems and, SOPs and, having the right model so that the business could run itself without me.
Right.
I hired virtual assistants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hired virtual assistants. That was the first time.
Yeah. So that was, trying to think, no, what was my question? I lost my train of thought, but you were doing it. I know what I was going to say. This is your first e-commerce business, right? Your first virtual business.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was the
Okay.
first one. I hired my first virtual assistant that year, November 2008. And since that single day in November, I've had a team of virtual assistants working for me every day since.
Right, because you didn't need to have them. That's what's great. I have one for all my marketing and the
Yeah.
podcast and everything. She's in like the Philippines.
Yeah.
She doesn't need to be here.
Yep.
You know, yeah, I'd use an agency in New Jersey. So, so then what was I going to say? Oh, was it in those early years? Was like, what was Amazon at that point? Was there Amazon Marketplace?
No,
was there
not like it is? No.
Yeah, so you had to build your own website and get people to come to it, basically.
Yep. Build your own website. Spend money on Google Ads.
Yeah, well, Google Ads worked in those days. You know, now some
back in the day they were awesome.
Ridiculous.
Well, and then back then we used to be able to sell. You could sell supplement products on.
Yeah, right. They changed those rules, right? Then
they changed it, and and it got really tough. So then, after doing that, so it was about 2014, 2015-ish, the FDA decided that homeopathic product could no longer be sold. And because they said that, they didn't ban the product. What they did is they actually backdoored, because there's no way that they could ban the product because it's a completely natural product. There's nothing in it that they
wasn't
could
a
ban.
drug.
So what they did is they told banks, and this is when I really learned about how the system can be corrupted. They just went to payment processing companies and said, we don't want anybody processing payments on this product, and it's not good for the market. I woke up one morning. I woke up one morning, and usually there's sales every morning. I check it first, and then there's no sales for a day. And I was like, whoa, that doesn't make any sense. I always wake up to sales. And then I found out my merchant account was shut down, and I find out why.
Yeah.
That's it. And so then I've got tons of money tied up with them in reserve, and they weren't going to give that back. And it took like 9 months to get that money out of there. But that's when I realized that that product was probably done. And so then I had to move on. And that's when I got into marketing.
Right. But you didn't do anything wrong. You weren't doing something illegal, selling some crappy product or anything like that. They just froze your money.
That's it.
Jesus.
Yeah. Fastest way to get to somebody is shut off their cash supply.
Big time. Well, that's what they do that's why economic sanctions work.
That's right. Yeah.
It's
the exact same thing. It's just a different scale now, but it's the exact same thing. I mean, people complain about it with Stripe, today. Stripe's the biggest, merchant for online businesses. Stripe, if they decide that they think you're a risky business, or they just don't like something that's going on in your business, or you have something on your website they don't agree with, they can literally shut you down, hold your money, and you're screwed, and your business is shut down.
I know. I've had Stripe lock up too, and they go, well, you got to verify this. We think this may be fraudulent, and then you got to go run and do some shit.
Jump through hoops.
Money lock. Yeah.
It's you want me to send you the same verification information that I sent you 2 months ago?
Right.
Guess what? It's still the same. Like
and stuff.
Yeah.
I met a guy, and there's a couple that are doing it. This guy was out of England. They're working on these new systems that can go literally peer to peer, right? Where you literally go into a store and you click on the reader, and it takes the money from your bank account right to their bank account for pennies. Not all these processors that make billions of dollars on us.
It's crazy how much money they make. Yeah.
That could be your next business, getting the payment processing. It's freaking ridiculous.
Oh, man. That's a tough one.
Yeah, well, that's why they brought that, right?
If you're getting a microcent off of every transaction.
Yeah, billions of them, you're making money.
You're making money hand over fist. Like, you look at a lot of these software companies, these SaaS products, and they're building, this show is obviously sponsored by Aweber. I used Aweber. That was my first, autoresponder back in the day. But companies that become CRMs and so forth, and then they integrate payments into their CRM. If, then they hook up with Stripe and they hook up with whoever, they take a micro payment and they run a couple $1 billion through there. That company is funded for life, because every VC on the planet, if they've got micro payments coming off of payment processing, they will invest endless amounts of money, because it's guaranteed money. Oh my God. It's amazing. Yeah.
I know. It's crazy. But that business is going to change, though.
It's going to. And I think, it has to change. The banking system and everything that we do for payment processing has to change. It's just archaic. I know. There's just, when you look at transfers from a payment in a business, you take a payment today with a credit card and it shows up 2 days later in your checking account.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense, because it's not like you and I exchanged a physical anything, right? Like it's
Right.
digital. It is
Right.
instant. And so the fact that they have even these, and then the idea that weekends they don't process and they don't do anything. And so if you take a payment on Friday, you don't see it till Tuesday. That makes no sense.
Well, it makes sense if you want to hold money and make overnight funds rates.
There you go. That's the same thing like ADP and Paychex and all these payroll companies. So I had a good buddy who worked for them for ADP, and he grew in the company, and he's like, you realize that we make 100% of our money on the float.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? What's
one extra day of holding billions of dollars is a lot of money.
Amazing. It's amazing. What an amazing business model. But you have to have the volume and the scale to be able to make that make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need the volume.
It's phenomenal.
Look, I switched to a processor through my bank that's next day, right? So it's right. But even when like you wire money, I once went in, it was a big real estate transaction because I do a lot of real estate as a lawyer. And with a bank check, well, the money's got to go into the bank because I have to close this transaction, right? So we got to distribute money. They go, all right, we'll be available in your account tomorrow. I go, it's a bank check. It's got to be available today.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, well, get your manager on the phone because I'm an attorney. His attorney trust account. It's got to be available today. We have to close and pay these people off. They went back and forth and they finally figured it out. And
of course.
Yeah, because they have to by rules. Of course they can do it. They press a button and the money goes.
Oh,
it's just pointless.
So ridiculous.
Guy goes with a wheelbarrow and fills it up with gold bars and walks it down the hallway in the Fed and puts it in your. It doesn't work
nobody
that
has
way.
Nobody has to count anything. That's the part that's funny. It's like, oh, it has to process. Process what? It's a microsecond.
Exactly.
That's it.
Well,
if they can approve the credit card transaction while you're sitting on the website in a microsecond, then the transfer, it is such a scam. It's such a scam.
It's worth business. And you know what the funny thing is, Joe? When it's going out of your account, it's instant.
Fast. It's instant.
If you pay for something online with a debit card, let's say, oh yeah, I see it pending already. It's out of the account. If it's coming in, I got to check, wait, see when it comes in, follow with the whole thing because they know bankers are not stupid. That's why they rob the banks, right? That's where the money is.
That's right.
You know? Yeah, no, money lending is the place to be. You control the money. And then you don't have anything else, right? You don't have inventory. You don't have anything to worry about.
That's
it's just money. So we'll see what the future holds here. So you have, I think, a bunch of businesses now. If we put the real estate aside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's more passive, I guess, right? I mean, maybe you do have some management you got to do, but I believe you have a virtual assistant company, right? You grew that because you're using virtual assistants and you're like, I can get these people for other people. Do you operate that in certain parts of the world where you get your VAs? Are they all US based?
Oh, no. So we're 98% in the Philippines.
Got it. Yeah. A lot of companies seem to come out of the Philippines.
And then a little bit in South America.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. A little out there. And then I have your resume here somewhere. And then I guess, how did you got into the wedding venues or not just weddings, right? You can host any kind of venues at these places. What did you do? You and a bunch of guys bought venues?
No, so how it started was I was, after I kind of lost everything for the second time with the e-commerce business and was kind of like, okay, well, what am I going to do from here? I was like, well, I'm pretty good at this marketing thing and like getting people to buy stuff. Like I'm pretty good at that. So maybe I should get into marketing. And then I was doing some consulting. I connected to a guy who connected me to another guy. And the next thing you know, I'm running some pretty big deals with Keller Williams out of Austin, Texas, right? Their head office. Yeah. And then I helped them build up their coaching company called MAPS. And then they became the biggest coaching company in the world. I helped them into business, MAPS business training, which was the business coaching side, and worked with them there. And then I moved into, I was like, well, at this point I should start an agency because, I'm super good at this and this is going to be, everybody's going to want to do business with us. So I launched an agency and that's when I got into that side of things. And so I'm running a marketing agency, local businesses, mainly, lots of small businesses doing that. I went to one of my best friends who owned a wedding venue. And for 4 years, I asked him to let me run. I had this idea. I'm like, I'm looking at your business. I see it every day because I'm with you all the time. I know all the secrets. I know everything that's going on in the building. I know everything that you're doing. And I know what all of your competition is not doing. Let me work with you. Let me help you run this campaign. And he kind of had the same attitude most wedding venue owners have, which is no, we're all referrals and that's how we get our business and we don't need to do marketing and and all
we like
that.
to struggle. It's really, we don't need more business. Right.
And I mean, from the outside, it looked like he had a super successful business. So then, it took a long time for me to convince him. And I said, look, let me just try this. You could pay me the minimum just to make sure that we do a good job. We took his business from essentially doing about 55 to 57 weddings a year. 14 months later, they were doing 120.
Wow.
And
All from your market.
And the only thing that we did was we implemented the strategy that I've been talking about for years. And I said, look, I know this is going to work. Nobody in the industry is doing it. And so then, of course, we launched that, working with him for a little while. Then I'm like, I could do this with other, venues too. And so I started taking on a couple of those clients. And I didn't really have a process down for venues. And I didn't have any clout in the industry other than working with one guy who happened to be my friend. Right. So that made it even worse. Right. But simultaneously, I had a marketing agency and I had a business partner in that one. And his core responsibility was business development, and he stopped developing business. And simultaneously, we lost our two biggest clients in about a 2-week period, and they were responsible for 40% of our revenue.
And they weren't in the venue business. They were in another kind
they
of
were
business.
they were small local businesses. And so that agency was bleeding cash, but the optimist in me, which is why I'm an entrepreneur, I guess I'm an optimist. I said, all we got to do is replace these, this revenue and we're good. But
it's easy.
It's no big deal, right? Just more clients. And so, more money solves all problems. And so then, but my business partner wasn't developing more business. So we were struggling. And finally I went to him one day and said, hey, like, we got to cut it. I'm $250,000 in personal debt that I was paying payroll because I had a whole bunch of US employees. So we had 27 US employees. We had a big office space with glass doors and walls and all that fun stuff. And I thought that was the thing that was going to make us uber rich, right? And
you're like mad, right?
Yeah, it's similar to that, more like Gary V, right? So and so I end up going, well, shoot, I can't take on any more debt, and I got to cut it. So he makes a major mistake, and he grabs everybody in the room. Realize we have zero cash to pay payroll. Yeah, and so my business partner grabs everybody, takes them to the conference room, and tells them, we're going to close down and everybody's, out of a job. Well, in California, you need to pay everybody upon firing them. You have I think 72 hours.
Oh, that's a Department of Labor, California Department of Labor requirement?
We didn't have any money. And I'm like, you can't, you can't do this unless we have money to pay him. So that turned into a huge shitstorm. And so then from there, I also decided, I was like, well, I'm going to stop paying my lease on the building, and then we'll figure out what's going to happen. So then they sue me. Of course they win. And I still owed 4 years, three and a half years on the lease or something. So it was like $180,000 on top of the $250,000 in debt. And
they couldn't re-rent the building in your
well, but they got a judgment. And so I'm stuck, but then I just go to him and I'm like, I get an attorney to help me. And he's like, hey, Joe's going to claim bankruptcy unless, you guys want to take something. You can take nothing or you could take something. And so we settled for $30,000. Okay. Which I'm like, that's a huge win.
That was good. Right.
But it was right at that time when a mentor of mine said, hey, in your agency, you were kind of doing too much. You were doing everything for everybody. So instead, why don't you do one thing for one niche? And I was like, okay. And he says, what niche would you choose? And I'm like, I don't know. And he said, all right, if you were with your kids on a Sunday and every single client called you, who would you pick up the phone for? And the only one I could think of was my buddy who owned the venue. And I said, because he won't be calling me with a fire.
Right.
Because we're doing well. And he goes, then that's your niche. Do that.
Yeah.
And so it was wedding venues.
Niche makes a big difference. Definitely does.
And so I said, all right, I'm going to do this one thing, which I called wedding booking system, one thing for one niche, and I'm going to go hard into it. So 4 months later, we went from one client, he was paying me like $3,000 to $109,000 a month in 4 months.
Just from hustling and finding more venues to work
all
for.
It was grinding. I had one virtual assistant that would prospect, and he would tee me up just to have a conversation. As soon as I could have a conversation, whether it be just messaging on social media, whether it was getting on a call, didn't matter which one. I'm like, tee me up, I'll close the deal. And so we closed enough deals. We did that for a few more. So 4 months later, we doubled. So we were doing just over almost 220 a month. And then I was able to pay all my debt off through that. I had zero debt all of a sudden, which I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then it got me thinking, because I kind of had the virtual assistant thing working just for some clients, and we were helping them get virtual assistants. And I thought, I could build the business doing that model. And so we did. And then that one skyrocketed. And that was
because it's just a placement business, and you already had the connections, right?
We already had the connections. Yeah. And we had a good team in place that could support it and run it. And then that's when I really started to figure out the model. And I said, okay, I have a system. I have something that works. And so we went from being like, that's right. Yeah. So we went from being like, in a lot of debt and a lot of bad things, because I lost everything for the third time. And then we were able to scale. And all of a sudden I had 2 very successful businesses in a very short amount of time.
Well, make up for lost time, right?
Yeah, there we go. Right. Yeah.
You were talking about the one thing. Isn't that what Gary Keller's book was called?
Yeah, that's right.
The one thing. I think I had the president of one of their companies, Jeff with a G, something on the podcast.
Oh,
it was one of their companies.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I remember the book called The One Thing, and his episode's on there somewhere. But but you're a hustler. I mean, you're doing the things that your partner wasn't doing, the development and making the business work, and you kind of figured it out, and there you were. So this is all great stuff. I love to talk about these stories. So let's do this. Let's take a brief commercial for the sponsors. Then we'll come back. We'll talk about more about what you're doing now. I love keep sharing stories. It's just great for people listening.
Awesome.
So
good.
Hang with me.
You got it.
Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. All right, Joe. So is Joe Rare your real name or your stage name?
No.
That's a great name. It's a great name.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny, right? Okay, so let's talk more about that stuff, because I think, through your journey, and by the way, I constantly tell people there's no connection between success and people that went to college and the people that didn't or got their masters or whatever. It's all over the board.
Yeah.
I know guys that got degrees at Ivy League universities and a master's degree, and they're nowhere now.
Right.
Nowhere. And I know a lot of people that didn't even finish high school, and they're very successful. Because they don't teach you that stuff, and you don't learn. And I'm sorry, I don't care about Harvard. You don't learn any of that stuff in school.
No, you don't. And even the funny thing was, I have spoken in multiple universities to
Have you?
this is the funny part, to entrepreneur classes.
Yeah.
And the discussions that I share with them, like they are just blinders. They're like, we are learning none of this in school. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm a dropout. Like I didn't finish because I couldn't understand how this was going to be applicable in my life. I knew I was just going to build businesses. So if I'm going to build businesses and I can't play basketball because I'm not good enough, then I should go build businesses. And there's no better lesson than getting punched in the face by life.
Of course. And Joe, the professor, didn't have these experiences.
No, he was a professor. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's very few places where you have somebody they've gone and they've built serious businesses, very profitable businesses, and then they turn around and go, I cannot wait to go back to a school and then go teach a bunch of kids who don't care.
Well, that's the thing. Like you and I, successful in business, and so we're not going to do that. You'll do a guest lecture.
I'll do a guest
lecture.
But you're
not going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So then let's talk more about that. So when you work with other people, because I know you do help people, and what are the kind of things you see that people do right with their businesses, because you're doing their marketing, and what do you come into that they're doing all wrong, and what can we give some advice to some people listening?
Yeah, and it kind of depends what scale they're at. One of the biggest things that I see a lot when I'm dealing with small businesses, especially small local businesses, is that they spend a lot of time doing things that aren't necessary. Meaning, they want to do stuff to feel busy. But at the end of it, the stuff doesn't actually produce dollars. So I always look at dollar generating activities. If you are not doing anything dollar productive, meaning it's not generating revenue, and you're the operator, you're the owner, stop doing everything else. There is nothing in your business that you can't hire for.
Yep.
And if you're the operator and you're the business and the owner and all that, there's probably nothing more effective than you just selling and generating more and more money. And then the more money that you have, the more money that you have, the more opportunities you have to employ people to then grow. And so that has become, I like to say my superpower. It's become my superpower, which is recognizing that I shouldn't touch most things in the business.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. So like I don't check my own email ever under any circumstance.
Real good.
Yeah. And if you imagine how much mental power and attention it takes to just dive into your email inbox, if you could turn that to 0, how much more productive could you be on things that actually matter?
Oh, because I mean, as a lawyer, I got to answer certain things, right? So I come in, probably takes me 45 minutes just to get through the stuff that came in from clients. Obviously I delegate a lot of stuff, but I can't delegate the legal stuff. I have an ethical rule I have to do, but if I could, sure, it'd be great.
But could you have somebody from your staff review it first, and then you come in and what your priorities are to respond?
Some of it, Some of it's just like a question that they'll be like, this, Joe had this question, can you answer it for him? So that some of it I can't, but I automate a lot of it now. But you're right. People, you know what I think it is, Joe? People are so afraid. Maybe it's afraid of failure. Maybe it's afraid of being, people like turning you away and being rude to you when you try and sell them something, that quote, don't sell me type of thing, that they do the, like you said, the shiny, fun stuff, making the product, doing the brochure, put up a sign, painting the office, whatever it is. And they totally ignore the one thing that drives the entire operation, which is sales. Like they're better off not having the store ready or not having the product finished. I mean, I do know businesses. Well, I think you said that before, right? Where you started, you didn't have a product. Like,
we didn't have anything. We didn't have fulfillment. We sold before we had fulfillment.
Of course.
And we just figured, we'll figure it out. Like, hey, I'm going to sell you. And I know what I'm selling, but we don't know how it's going to go from somebody gave us money and now we're going to go to actually completing what we promised them. We didn't know that process, but it was like, well, guess what? We can figure it out. And so, and that's exactly what we do almost with everything. I'd rather go figure out if somebody's going to pay first before I go build everything.
Right.
And so, we've launched multiple companies. We had no logos. We had no brand name. We had no product name, package name. We just knew we were going to sell this thing to this market. And so we go out and we talk to them and say, hey, here's this cool thing that we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Here's what it's going to cost. Would you like to join us? And then you get, 8, 10, 20 of those. And then you go, okay, now we build our back-end processes and we find out what works, what doesn't work, what's breaking, what's succeeding. And then you just keep refining it. Now you've got a system and now you're good.
Yeah. Do you know how many people I've met where they have like a fledgling business? Somebody comes to them and say, Joe, listen, I need to do this. Actually, I knew a guy that he had taken over his dad's company. Dad's company sold like Thuman's, cold cuts to like the stores, and the kids takes over. So he starts like supplying to like, hotels, and they had commercial accounts. So he's in the hotel one day, hotel operator, the manager says, listen, Joe over there, he runs the kitchen. He can't make like gourmet sandwiches if his life depended on it. Can you talk to him and tell him how to do it? So the guy goes over, talks to you, Joe. Joe's arrogant and like pissed off that this guy's telling me what to do, and he leaves. So the other guy, I forget his name actually. He's not my client anymore. It was like my old partner's client, but he goes to the manager and says, listen, I'll make you the sandwiches. How much? And they never did that, right? Yeah. They were bulk sellers. Yeah. They would just deliver the stuff. He goes, all right, I need 1,200 sandwiches by Friday. It's like Tuesday. He goes on the way home, buys like 10 slicers, gets back to the office and tells all the employees, listen, we're making sandwiches.
That's right. There you go.
They delivered. Next week, the guy says, all right, now in 2 weeks, I need 5,000 sandwiches. They grew the business to the point where they were doing $80 million in sales of fresh gourmet sandwiches because they got into universities and they started supplying all of the cafeterias up and down the East Coast and everything. It became a logistics business. It wasn't even a sandwich business.
Right.
Because he said yes. Yeah. He said, I'll figure it out. And
I think saying yes gets you to a certain place. Then you get then once you're getting successful, you've got your systems, your processes, then you narrow down and you say, now I'm going to say no to everything that isn't this one thing.
That's exactly what he did. Niche down. That's all they did. He wouldn't even say yes to anything past like, Philadelphia, because if he had a truck out at Notre Dame on its way to Notre Dame and it broke down because there were refrigerated trucks, he couldn't get another vehicle out there. All the food would spoil. So he wouldn't take an account. It didn't work. Opened like another commissary somewhere, which he didn't want to do. But you say yes, but you gotta, you definitely have. But what was his risk though, Joe? I mean, if it failed, right? If he didn't get the sandwiches to this guy, couldn't do the 5,000 sandwiches, he'd go back to the business he was doing.
I mean, the same business. Yeah, he's just back to the same old thing that he was doing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what difference does it make?
Yeah. I've heard tons of stories like that where they said yes and they executed and they worked it out. And I'm sure it was like a fire drill. But not forever.
I always said, if we were to take on and say, yes, hey, let's sell this idea, and then we got to figure out how to fulfill it. Worst case scenario, we give them a refund and we can't fulfill it. And then the business is over. But then that the business is done, or that you couldn't fulfill it the way you were trying and you just change everything and then move forward from there.
And you always regret the things you didn't try.
Oh yeah. That's why it's always like, I want everybody to try. Go fail.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, fall on your face, fail, get back up, and let's fix it.
I know. The most successful people I've had on this podcast, I've said to them, like during their career with different businesses, weren't you like thinking like, what if this doesn't work? Like, whatever. And they're like, no, I never even thought that. Like that wasn't even in my mind.
That is the craziest thing about entrepreneurs, I think. Is the fact that we don't go into a project and I think that you weigh, okay, is this going to bankrupt my family? Okay, nobody's doing that. But we don't go into it thinking, well, this might fail and here's the out. No, it's like, okay, so this might not work the first time and then we're going to have to iterate it. Or we're going to scratch that and go to the next. Yeah. It's never there's no not moving forward. Right. There's just, what are we going to be moving forward with? It's going to be something from this. We're not going into this going, we're going to try this one thing and then we're out if it doesn't work. No, it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. So now it's to the next thing, There is no failing because it's always learning and you're moving and there's always something that's going to come.
It didn't work that way. And now we're going to make it work this way.
That's right. Yeah.
It sounds funny, but that's what they say about Edison, right? He didn't fail like 10,000 times to make the light bulb. He figured out 9,000 ways for it not to work.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
exactly it.
And that, yeah, and it's constant. And I don't know if that's something that can more than be partially taught. I think the people that I've met just have it in them where it isn't failure. It's just another learning experience. It's a growth opportunity to find the thing that they're looking for to do it right. They even know, and I'm sure you know this too, right? When you're firing on all cylinders and things are going great, you're looking for the next opportunity because you know that's not going to last forever. And something's going to change in the marketplace, or technology changes, or we have a pandemic or whatever. Resilience has a lot to do, and you just shift.
Yep.
Because that's part of the deal, right?
Yeah. You always have to have your head on a swivel and paying attention to opportunities and paying attention to market conditions and, you know, what's happening in your industry. And if you're not paying attention, you're not running your business well. Because you need to be on top of it.
And that's part of some of the fun of it, you know, being on the edge and watching. So what do you got now? Because I know we're getting near the end of this thing. You got the wedding marketing company, basically. You do bookings for them and so forth. You have the virtual assistant company. You have, we'll put your real estate portfolio beside. What you have something with camping, I remember you told me about.
So Campground Digital is a small, during the pandemic, we took off and we were camping because my wife was a hairstylist. Her salon got shut down 3 times in California. We decided to just go travel and see what we wanted to do. And I could work from anywhere. So we just did that. And we took off and we kept coming up to campgrounds. And we were just like, you know, in the website, you can't really tell if they're any good. And nobody gets back to you because they're not answering the phone. And it was challenging. I was like, there's something here. What if we just did some digital marketing for campgrounds? And so we ended up choosing a different campground than this other one we thought we wanted because we couldn't figure out if it was like great for dogs and kids and whatnot. And so as I was sitting there, I just got there, we set up camp, I pulled out my iPad and I started drawing a landing page. And I sketch it, send it to my VAs and say, hey, can you guys just build this out? Here's what I'm thinking. Gave them all the copy, everything that we wanted. Then I just, as we were driving, I just started calling campgrounds and I'm saying, hey, you know, we were going to stay with you, but we're on your website and I can't figure this out. 9 out of 10 times they said, oh yeah, our website sucks. And we're going to improve it. And I'm like, hey, here's the deal is like, you know, I happen to also do this and I've got a little business that we run. We help campgrounds just like you. And the next thing you know, we've got, you know, a business that's generating $40,000, $50,000 a month and it just ran on autopilot. And so it still does. And we just run our marketing system for them, help them with text messaging so that people actually communicate, you know, because that's always a pain. And and so that there's that. And then last year I launched a company called Visitor Match, and we do identity resolution and in-market data for small businesses. So this is huge for some of our best clients are attorneys because they spend so much money on marketing and advertising. And so instead, you know, quick analysis is like if you're spending $10,000 a month on advertising, 85 to 90% of all of the traffic that you get bounces without doing anything. So the identity resolution side is that we actually match anonymous website visitors against the identity graph of user profiles. There's about 280 million of them in our database. And so we match the anonymous website visitor to a profile. And then we run it to what's called offline data, which is like skip tracing. And so then we match and we make sure that all of this data is cohesive and it's really, really good data. And then we just give it back to you and you can either run it through your own CRM, email marketing. You can run it back to the ad platforms and run more hyper-targeted ads. And the cool part is that the data matching is better than like Facebook's data. So they match about a 15% rate because they only have name and email. We match based on 30 to 50 different data points per single profile. So when we load this data back into the ad platforms, it's hyper targeted and the ad platforms just give you the best delivery. And so we use that and that's amazing. And so we launched that last year.
Visited the law firm's website, right?
Yep. And they left without doing anything.
And you somehow grabbed them and
got all their information. So we use a pixel and we cook, you know, obviously cookie their browser. That data is drawn out and then it's basically loaded into our identity graph. And then we can match them based on their identity through billions of data points.
And what basically meet let's call it the ideal client profile, right? then the law firm wants to market to them, basically, right?
Correct. And if
So
somebody's
very, very,
been on your
very
website,
targeted. Right.
and if somebody's been on your website, you have a familiarity bias when it comes to the advertising on the back end.
Right.
So
you
what
won't
it
be
does,
I'm hearing from those guys because I visited their website. That's right. I remember.
And so it skyrockets the efficiency of your marketing. So if you're spending $10,000 a month on ads or marketing, and you can get a 200% lift in efficiency, it's unbelievable. I mean, it changes everything.
Did you figure that out?
Well, I've been buying data for about 7 years through just all marketing. So we buy data from data aggregators. The challenge has always been, well, what do you do with it?
Right. It's just like a list, like lists from companies.
That's right. So what good is a list, right? What good is a list? Well, I want a list that's really narrow rather than a big list. And so we started figuring out how to create more of a narrow scope on everything we were doing. Then when the Pixel opportunity came up to run identity resolution, that worked really well. Then when we got into in-market data, in-market data is people who are searching actively on Google, Yahoo, Bing, YouTube, things like that. They're searching actively on these platforms, and they're hitting all of these, because they make these searches, then they hit these other websites. Well, we have about 30 billion URLs that are that's basically sit within this graph, and it's looking for buyer intent. And so there's certain data points, and if they hit these data points, they are a buyer searching. And so then we draw that back. You can run those as ads. You can run cold email. It's amazing.
Wow. Is this expensive for the average small guy like me, a solo guy, or is it better for a big firm or a big company?
It works for both. I mean, we have we have law firms that are very large that spend a ton because they're spending $100,000 a month, in just ads.
Yeah, right. Of course.
But then we have small single office attorneys. We have kind of mid-size, everything in between. Yeah.
Wow.
And there's packages, crazy. There's options for literally anybody based on your size.
All right. I learn something every day, every time I talk to somebody. So look, getting a VA was like one of my goals this year, and it was the best thing I ever did. I don't do podcasting anymore. She puts out blog articles for me. I'm getting business just because I have more content out there,
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
I
wonderful.
work for the guy. He's got an agency in New Jersey near me. So, and he does. It's the Philippines.
Yeah.
And he's just like you. It's not Filipino. I don't know how that happens where you got the agency.
No, because we're users of the service. Yeah, that's what it was. And then there's an opportunity to go, okay, well, let me just, we know the processes. Let's go build it.
Right. Well, how do you find these people in the Philippines?
We have an entire HR division in the Philippines doing recruiting and everything. Oh yeah. I mean, we're into the universities. We're everywhere.
Yeah. It's a big business. Well, I know, it's a well-educated country. Most of them speak very good English.
Yep.
So what more do you want? I mean, yeah, absolutely. So Joe, what's the best way for people to interact with you, find you, learn from you? They got to read your book. It should be like, my loss was your gain or something like that.
That's actually a good title. We should, I should think about that. I know. I have been, I've been getting a lot of pressure from my peers, my close friends and so forth to write a book. Just because of how many times I've failed and rebounded, I've gotten a lot of pressure lately, and so
that's why it's my loss is your gain. And Joe Rare is a great name. Got to be on a hookup. I mean, come on.
So I might have somebody help me ghostwrite it because I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I don't know how to write a book, and I'm not going to go learn. What I want to do is I want to just create audio and then go. Here's my story. Please write my book. That's what I want to do. Yeah. So I might. But anyway, easiest way to reach me, Joe at level9virtual.com. That's my my email. Pretty much any social media channel is Joe Rare. Just at Joe Rare. Almost all of them.
In the show notes. Absolutely.
Yep, that's it. Easy. Reach me anytime.
Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Even though I was out of my home studio, now I'm on the road. So.
Oh, good. All right, Joe.
All right.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. You got it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.